Hello there, I'm fantasy author Dianna Gunn, and today I'm here to tell you why I've decided to self-publish my second book, Moonshadow'S Guardian. And my first book, Keeper of the Dawn, is actually published by a small press called the Book Smugglers Publishing, and I absolutely love working with them, and I've already done a video explaining why I decided to go with a small press instead of trying to seek an agent and get into one of the big 5 publishing houses. But when I decided to self-publish my second book, I had a lot of people asking me a new question. Why would you bother to self-publish if you already have established that other people are willing to publish your book? In other words, why are you going to self-publish when you could work with a legitimate publisher, whatever that means in 2018? And I think that this question is typically based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what self-publishing is. It is rooted in the idea that self-publishing is still a last resort for most authors, and that it's something you only turn to when you can't get traditionally published. But that hasn't been true for a long time, and that gets less true for authors every single year. Today, I'm going to share why I and thousands of other authors around the world are deciding to make the leap into self-publishing, even though many of us have already been traditionally published to some extent. Reason number 1. I completely control the timeline when I self-publish my books. Traditional publishing takes a long time, and this is particularly true if you're with a big house, where often you'll go for 2 years between signing your book with a publisher and actually seeing it in print. Small publishers, it tends to be less time. It tends to only be a year to get from signing the contract to publishing the book, but that's still a long time, especially when you factor in the time of looking for that small publisher in the first place. When I signed Keeper of the Dawn, I didn't have a place for Moonshadow'S Guardian. I did not have a home for it, so I decided that I wanted to self-publish Moonshadow'S Guardian so that I would be able to release it on my own timeline and release it about a year after Keeper of the Dawn, because one of the best ways to be a successful author and to ensure the longevity of your career is to publish regularly, and many authors I follow publish actually 4 or 5 or even 10 times a year. Publishing once a year is considered by these authors and by many other authors to be the bare minimum. And so I decided to release Moonshadow'S Guardian on my own because that was the only way I could absolutely guarantee that it would come out in 2018. Reason number 2 is that I also control the content. Moonshadow'S Guardian is a very ambitious book. It is very different from most of the adult fantasy genre. It actively tries to break away from a lot of the tropes that mainstream adult fantasy seems to really still be stuck on. It has a whole host of women who are powerful and who have autonomy, real autonomy, the ability to make their own choices and truly shape not just this book's story, but the world around them. Moonshadow'S Guardian is also written in first person with 2 different POV characters, which is a really ambitious choice, especially for fantasy, and for a new writer, there are a lot of editors who aren't going to take that leap. So I decided I wanted to publish this book on my own so that I could make sure that this book came out the way I wanted it to. And hi, do you want to talk about my book too? Hey, you jumped on my lap, now you have to cuddle me. This is my cat, Mr. Mistopheles. He's only 6 months old and he's so big. You jumped on me. I don't think he gets it. The third and final reason that I've decided to self-publish Moonshadow'S Guardian is because as a self-published author, I have complete control of the marketing. Traditionally published authors still have to do a fair amount of marketing themselves, but as a traditionally published author, there is a lot of stuff that's out of their control. They don't control how much the publisher decides to spend on their marketing budget. They don't control how many giveaway copies or ARCs there are for reviewers. They don't control if or when their book goes on sale, and they certainly don't get to make the first book in a series free when the next book in the series comes out. These are all things that self-published authors have done and have been doing for years with enormous amounts of success. Traditionally published authors also don't have access to their own Amazon ads. They don't get to use those ads, which are one of the most effective ways for authors to promote their books. And when you're traditionally published, you can tell your publisher that it would be nice to see Amazon ads for your books, but it's really not up to you if those ads actually happen. The ads are only in your control if you are a self-published author. Now, for a lot of authors, this control of the marketing is actually one of the scary things about self-publishing, and a lot of people go to a traditional publisher because they want to have at least a little bit of support with marketing their book. And that's a very good reason to go the traditional route. In fact, that's part of why I decided to find a publisher for Keeper of the Dawn instead of self-publishing. Because I wanted, at least for my first book, to have that little bit of a boost that comes from having a publisher with their own established platform and their own established connections that you can then work with. But I actually really love marketing, and marketing is actually most of my day job. I do freelance writing, and mostly for blogs, and I do social media management for a handful of clients. I try to stick mostly with the freelance writing, but I do enjoy the social media management, and I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts by successful self-published authors like the Creative Pen podcast and the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing podcast. And so I feel ready to market my book and to really give Moonshadow's Guardian the best chance of success possible on my own. But there is also a catch to self-publishing, and that's that you either have to do everything yourself or you have to pay somebody else to do it. And the one thing that you really absolutely must pay somebody else to do is professional editing. We all need a professional editor. We are all too close to our own work to see its flaws. And yes, some of us are our own worst critic, but often we're just looking at the wrong flaws, and we still need an editor to tell us what is actually wrong with it and what is the most important thing to fix. But professional editing can get expensive fast, especially for someone like me whose day job is freelance writing and who tends to have an inconsistent income. So last week I started a Kickstarter campaign to raise $1,500 for one full round of copy editing and one full round of proofreading for Moonshadow's Guardian. This Kickstarter campaign will also cover my upload fees to Ingram Spark, and this gives me access to print distribution in thousands of stores around the world, giving Moonshadow's Guardian the same chance of success as any traditionally published book. And what more could a self-published author want? As of making this video, I have already raised almost $900, and I am extremely grateful for this enormous outpouring of support. But there's still $600 left to go. If I'm going to make this thing happen, I'm going to need your help. So head on over to my Kickstarter campaign. You can find the link in the video description below. And buy yourself some awesome books. You can get not only a copy of Moonshadow's Guardian, but you can also get signed copies of Keeper of the Dawn and a bunch of other amazing books from other indie authors who have been kind enough to donate prizes to this campaign. So go on over there, check it out, and support self-published fiction today. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe before you go.